Folks, welcome back to the podcast. And this week we've got Henry Crew. How you doing, Henry?
Yeah, good to be here. Nice to finally chat to you almost face to face, Bruce.
I know, mate. I can't believe I don't think we've actually ever met in person, have we?
No,
No, I don't
never.
think we have. I know. I can't believe that. It's ridiculous. But we will make amends. I'll make sure that happens next time we're somewhere where we're both at. Well, I'll find you. I'll find you and come and say hello. Folks, if you're not aware of who Henry Crew is, we'll pass this over on the floor as usual to Henry and he can give you the lowdown. But essentially, you broke the Guinness World Records for being the youngest person to ride around the world unsupported. Is that correct?
Yeah, on a motorcycle. So, 2018 I left, I think, at the age of 22. And 13 months and 52,500 miles later, came back to the UK and, broke the world record for youngest person to go around the world on a motorbike.
Awesome.
So, yeah, quite a trip. A couple of years ago now, and it's been a weird few years since getting back. I'm sure you know how it is coming back. You want a little bit of a break, but I didn't expect 2 years and a pandemic.
I remember how hard, we'll get into this, but I remember how hard I found it coming back and adjusting to normal life again. And to have that on top of a global pandemic where, everybody is locked down, gee whiz, I can only imagine how difficult that has been to deal with. Before we get into it then, how about we arm ourselves for the evening ahead? Good
what
man.
Are you going for?
I received a little package from one of you lovely people out there, which is awesome. I get sent beer in the post every now and then. It's amazing. Mate, it's fantastic. So I've been sent some Elvis juice. Yeah, Elvis juice. Brewdog Elvis juice. So slangs to you.
It is, yeah.
To your health. It's good, that. What are you drinking yourself?
Oh, just a Peroni, bog standard. In a meal deal, Tesco's, dine in.
It's the way to go. It's the way to go. Right, so 2018, you set off on this trip of a lifetime. What brought all that about? What set you off on that journey?
It's a difficult one, really. I'd wanted to, I started riding bikes when I was 19. I guess we'll start there. And I'd always wanted to ride bikes, but no one in my family rode, so I didn't really have an easy route into it. And I'd always known I wanted to do it. And when I had a bit of my own money, I just decided I'm going to take my license. And ever since then, it helped so much with my mental health. And it just sort of took over my life, really. So a couple years down the line, I'd finished uni and was sort of working a 9 to 5, not getting the progression that I wanted out of it, and still finding all of my enjoyment in life from motorcycles. Wanted to travel, wanted to do some longer bike trips, but couldn't really take the time off to do anything. So I just thought, well, screw this. I'm going to do as big as I can, I guess. And I came into work one day, turned on the computer and read an article on the Bike Shed about Kane Avellano's world record. And I'd followed bits of his trip. And that was the first time I'd realized how old he was when he got back, and realized then that I could break that record. So just turned to my mate, Glenn, at work and said, I'm going to do this. And then 11 months ago I left, and that was that pretty much.
So not a single beer involved?
No, middle of the day, completely sober.
Wow. But you did it though. As soon as you say to somebody, I'm going to do this, I'm sure you're like me. Once you've said it out loud publicly, that's it. It's showtime.
Well, I think that helped me a lot throughout the whole process for the trip. There's such a long period building up to leaving, with getting all the visas and just trying to get a bit of a clue on what the hell you're going to do in order to get around the world. So there's such a long period of figuring it out, which could easily be the period that you spend talking yourself out of it or backing out of it.
Absolutely.
But I was quite lucky in that I was quite vocal about it from the beginning. I knew that I needed to have sort of support around me anyway, and wanted to raise money for Movember, so I got in touch with them. And one of the first things they said was, okay, cool, do the DGR and we'll put you on BBC Three. So I did a 15-minute piece for BBC Three, and after that's out there, you can't
You've got
take
to
it
do
back.
it.
So stuff like that was really good for not letting me wiggle my way out of it. I don't think I would have done, but it was a helpful approach for me. And then I think as well, like a lot of people just think you're blowing hot air until a couple of weeks before and you've got your leave date.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I say, it's a long expanse of time between the initial idea to getting out the door and putting your keys back through the letterbox and not coming back for a year.
I know, yeah. What a feeling that is, isn't it? 11 months. Was that how long you took to plan then?
Yeah, about 10 or 11 months. So I think I decided to do it in about June or July 2017, that would have been. Then in August, I wrote the bike off that I was meant to do the trip on. and then I left in March 2018. I was hoping to leave in about February, but I didn't have a bike until properly the last minute. So yeah,
I mean, I know you're saying it's quite a long time, 11 months, but it's not really. Speaking with, I think I was 3 years, but I've said it since. I could have done that so much quicker. It's just I was involved with the 2012 Olympics and stuff, and I knew I could not get any time off work till after that. So that sort of just set 2012 in my head. Yeah, I mean, I've said since that I think if I was to be in the position to go again, I would literally pick my passport up, my phone, credit card, jump on the bike, and off we go. I don't know about you, but I met people along the way who had no visas, or they just got forged, photoshopped visas and carnets, and they were making it work. It was all happening, and I was like, I spent 3 bloody years and so much fucking money trying to, going down the official line. And people are just winging it out there and doing a damn good job of it.
Yeah, I think I didn't meet too many people that were completely winging it, but definitely people without as much of a plan, and they knew that they could make it work, or you can get a visa outside of the UK. I think the reason that I did mine in 10 months is because I'd sort of calculated stuff in order to get back to beat the record, and the timings on that were quite fine. I only beat the record by about a month or two. Wow. So even though I'm a year younger, I'm 23. I was 23, and it was 23 in 10 or 11 months, and Kane did it on his 24th birthday. So I knew that I had to leave pretty soon after deciding to do the trip.
True.
But I definitely agree with you that if I was to do something now, it would just be way less of a plan, no big goal or ambition, but just a lot of miles and a lot of time on a motorbike. And the most incredible bits are all of the unplanned bits anyway.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that's when, from everyone I've spoken to and in my own experience, that's when the real adventure starts, isn't it? Is when things go wrong, or you go off plan, don't you? You go somewhere that you hadn't planned on being, or you meet people that you hadn't planned on meeting, and that's when all the fun starts. So you mentioned you wrote the bike off. What was the first bike you were going to take then?
Well, my whole thing was that I wanted to. It's sort of like you, Bruce. I didn't want to be on the big GS. I kind of saw it as a bit pointless and overkill, and actually not the most practical vehicle to take. And I wanted to sort of prove that you could do it on whatever bike you wanted to, just your daily driver. So I was literally just going to take my bike that I used for commuting, which was a Kawasaki W800. It's like a poor man's Bonneville, basically, which I was at the time. And and then I wrote it off coming home from work one day, and just in the rain, pulling off to a petrol station, and both wheels just locked up, and there was no saving it.
No.
Yeah, the engine literally split in half. It was
gee whiz.
Pretty extreme. One day off work, and I was back at the office. And then it took literally the whole 10 or 11 months, whatever it was, to find another bike for the trip. I pretty much had my visas sorted by November. but yeah, I just couldn't get anyone to give me a bike or lend me a bike. And then eventually Ducati UK came through and said, we've got this desert sled press bike that's not really doing things anymore. If you want to take that, you can have it.
That is amazing. Well, what were your thoughts? Be honest. What were your thoughts when Ducati said, we'll give you a bike?
I was actually really excited about it because I remember seeing the Scrambler when it first came out in about 2015, and I really didn't like it. It was just, the design wasn't for me, a bit plasticky. But the desert sled had sort of passed me by, I think. I might have seen a couple of images from it, but not really connected the dots. So when they actually highlighted it and I went back and looked at it, I was like, that looks wicked. And yes, it's a Ducati, but all it has, well, at the time I estimated that it was going to be 35,000 miles to do around the world, and branded everything under 35,000 miles, got a 35 tattoo when I was in Australia. It ended up being 50,500 miles. But I was like, the bike only has to do 35,000 miles. It's not, I'm not asking the world of it.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was based on like quite a reliable Ducati engine. So yeah, and also I didn't have any other choice. So I was just grateful that someone was helping me out, to be honest.
So what issues did you have with it along the way then?
Lots of clutches. So there was an issue with the clutch basket, and it basically chewed through the plates. But they would just replace the plates and not the basket, so then it would just happen again.
Yeah.
So I think I went through about 3 or 4 clutches. The first one went about 25 days into the trip.
No,
the bike had
really?
miles on it when I picked it up. But funnily enough, when I came back, I met up and did an article with the guys from Ride magazine. And the guy doing the interview and everything was like, I swear that's the number plate that we used like when we did the article. He was like, went back, pulled the magazine number plate front and center and sent me a picture and was like, yeah, we were not kind to it, and I'm not surprised with
it's your fault.
But yeah, quite a few clutches, a couple of valves initially, and then I had one of the bearings for the belt tensioners explode when I was in Thailand, which shot holes through the belts and everything. Luckily, I was only an hour away from the factory in Thailand.
Wow.
A couple of fork seals, and then I think I went through a brake cylinder when I was in North America at about 45,000 miles. It's a known issue on the Monsters as well, that it's right next to the exhaust, so it just cooks the cylinder. And then when I left Australia, I started to notice that I was burning quite a lot more oil, and all through South America I was like, I'm burning a lot of oil. So I stopped between Chile and North America. I stopped at about 7 or 8 different dealerships. By this point I'd figured out that my oil pump had failed and it wasn't circulating the oil properly. So I just asked them, order me the part, I'll fit it in the car park if you don't want anything to do with it. Like, it's not a big deal, it's not an expensive part, and it's really accessible. No, they wouldn't do it. It's like, we'll take care of it, it's fine. They'd come out and they'd be like, okay, we've new oil and filters in there, so everything will be fine now. By the time I got to North America, I needed to have the whole engine replaced because
seriously?
Yeah, I'd lost 42% compression in one cylinder and 24% in the other, just because the oil pump had failed and wasn't circulating to the top of the cylinders, basically. And it all could have been avoided with like I say $100 part. In Ducati money, it's probably quite a bit more. But yeah, it's one of those frustrating things that wasn't a great look for the motorbike and for Ducati's reliability, I guess, but was such a simple fix. And it's the thing that actually frustrated me the most. The bike I loved every second on the bike, and I didn't really think, for what I put it through, there was any big issues with reliability. The only thing that was a real struggle sometimes was dealing with Ducati servicing, the consistency of it, and the cost of it, and the willingness of Ducati to help me out when I was in the shit. They wouldn't send me a new engine when the when it blew up, and it was their bike, and it was still under warranty. And they, and I was just like, right. They did eventually send it when I started posting stuff about it on social media.
I mean, I can totally sympathise with you there. I had lots of issues with manufacturers not actually taking me on initially. I remember what you were saying before is that people really don't take any notice of you until it feels like the last minute, isn't it? It's like I'm on the start line ready to go, and then people are like, okay, we'll give you this, we'll give you that.
Or even until you've already done the work. Like you're halfway through it and they're like, oh, now we'd like to get behind you. Yeah.
I'd always planned on doing it on a Jigsaw Thou, and that was always my plan. And I went and saw Suzuki umpteen times at the NEC and the London Bike Show. Wherever I saw Suzuki, I would go up and chat to them and email them and stuff. And they initially said, yeah, no problems, you get the bike and we'll provide the global backing. So I was like, happy days, brilliant. That's just the servicing along the way is, what it's like. It's a massive weight off your mind, isn't it? So I went and I bought the Jigsaw Thou, and then they turned around and went, actually, I think it might be a bit hard for us to organise the global support, so feel free to go and get another manufacturer on board. I was like, I've just bought the bloody bike. I just spent 10 grand on this bike. But I'm glad I did it off my own back now, because as it turned out, that bike was literally bulletproof. It was fantastic. So it did the job. But it is hard, isn't it? I get a lot of people, you must as well. You must get people contacting you all the time going, how'd you do this trip? How did you fund it? I want to do something like that. And the truth of the matter is it's bloody hard, isn't it? You've got to stick at it.
The part of the whole thing is the finances.
Absolutely.
But if I did it again, I wouldn't. I don't know. I say that, but money's nice, isn't it? And free money is even nicer.
Yeah, absolutely.
I say now that I'd love to do it without any support and just be free to do whatever I want, wear whatever I want, ride whatever I want, have no commitments to anyone. Because Kane, actually, the guy whose record I broke, said to me before, is there's always a payoff. There's always a sacrifice when you get someone involved. And he said straight out the bat, like, I didn't get any financial support, neither did the guy that did it before me. And you can try all you want, email as many people as you want, and I don't think you'll get any either. And I didn't. So I wouldn't waste my time with it now, even though I'm probably in a slightly better position than someone that's not done it before or doesn't have any sort of following, I guess. But it's a real double-edged sword, accepting any kind of financial.
It is. How have you found it? Feel free not to answer if you're not comfortable with it. But I know especially since going full time now, I've got channel sponsors involved. I've got I do the odd sponsored vid, and the second you bring in sponsors into the equation, like half your audience will resent that, and the other half are good as gold about it. And then also, as you said, you end up being kind of tied to certain extents. But I've tried to be as upfront with my own sponsors as I can and say, I'll always speak my mind. I'll always say what I think. I'm not just gonna, fling shit at you or anything. If there's something negative about a product that I review, then I'll say that, but I'll also say why and any pros that go with it as well. You've got to try and be as open and honest and balanced as you can, don't you? But it has certainly made me reappraise the thought of doing a bigger trip again that is possibly backed by another sponsor, because I do exactly what you've just thought. It's like, you then become tied. And although initially they might say, we don't want anything, just, use this product or have that money, at some point there'll be any chance you could just do this and say this and do that. And
it is difficult, but I'm the same as you. Like I'm very clear with with my approach to any sort of branded gear or branded promotion at all. And I'll always try to convince the brand that it is in their best interest for me to be totally honest about it, and for me to put it into more context. So, for example, last year I did a trip called the Highland Scramble, which is basically North Coast 500 with a few additions, and a great team up in Scotland called Biker B&B. And I was doing a bit of work with Beeline, which is like a navigation device at the time.
Yeah, saw that.
I a few of their demonstration videos, and then approached them and said, "Look, I'm doing this trip. It's going to be wicked. The scenery is going to be awesome. Do you want to sponsor the trip? I'll put out a video of the trip and everything, and I'll feature the Beeline in it, but I'm not going to really put a huge commentary on it or like good or bad or whatever, because I've already done my review video, which wasn't sponsored at all. But it would just be like something cool for you to be attached to, and people can see that your device actually works in the real world.
Yeah, in a real world.
Stuff like that, I think it's so easy and it makes so much sense, and the audience enjoys it more. The manufacturer or product designer or whatever gets more out of it, and I'm not in an awkward position, and it can pay for my trip or whatever. But I feel like that's what it is difficult, because the audience, it's hard to explain that, like, I enjoy making the content, but that doesn't mean that I can work full time for no money, and YouTube royalties don't make anything. I don't get anything for posting on Instagram. But you want me to put content onto your phone every day or once a month or whatever it is. It doesn't even, the YouTube ads don't even pay for the petrol in my bike or the like to my editing service and stuff like that. So yeah, it is a difficult balance. And,
Can I ask, is this you full time now then? Are you doing
at the moment,
bike thing full time?
But it's been a weird couple of years really. I got back from the trip and spent about sort of 6 to 8 months just doing the freelance bike stuff basically, and then decided that I wanted something a bit more consistent, especially going into winter. So took a 9 to 5 and was doing that alongside quite a bit of freelance stuff until COVID happened. But the whole time I met my, spoiler for the story, I met my ex-girlfriend when I was in Australia, going around the world, and she came back to the UK, and then I was out in Australia for a few months, and just back and forth, and then finally made the decision that I was moving out to Australia, did my visa and everything like that, got to a few weeks before, quit my job, COVID. 2
no.
I'm gonna leave. So yeah, it's been a real weird year, or multiple years really, because I've been waiting for something to happen and not progressing stuff to the full extent, or doing another big trip or whatever, because I knew I was planning on something else. And then 15 months of waiting for Australia to open their borders, and then that was it. So now I feel like I've got a bit more freedom in certain respects, I guess. So just waiting for COVID to happen. But yeah, the plan is, after that, I just decided to take a few months and just reassess where I want to be and what I want to do and everything like that. So we'll see. But at the moment, it's full time, not super busy, but not that bothered about it. And then I've bought a truck which I'm kitting out with a trailer. So I'm gonna, hopefully the next thing I'll have a bit more of a home base. I think that was the thing that I found really difficult, just being on a bike with 4 or 5 bags, is not having any kind of base at all. It's nomadic to the absolute extreme.
I loved it.
And I did enjoy it, but at the same time, I felt like I lost parts of my identity while doing it.
I get that.
And one small part of my identity became my whole identity. So just being able to like not wear bike clothes for a day would be really nice. Or just like, I don't know, a bit more space. I mean, plug your phone in, have somewhere to sit down and not in the rain. And yeah, I don't know, just have a bit. I would probably, for example, head over to Spain park up the truck, spend a night there, get all my shit together, pack up, leave the truck, and head out for a week or 2 weeks, and then come back to the truck and take the truck onto the next sort of destination. But I don't really know how it's going to work at the moment, and I'm pretty flexy and fluid. Yeah, it's interesting. I feel pretty much as I did at the start of, or leading up to my original Round the World at the moment, where I don't have anything here, and any commitments, and I don't have any reason to stay. So I'm just, there's a lot of options. It's just which one do I want to pick?
Brilliant. Awesome. So could you see another big trip, as in global trip, in the pipeline?
I see another big trip, as in not coming home for a long period of time.
Brilliant.
And I think the truck will enable me to do that a bit more consistently, and have a bit more consistency in my output as well. But I think I was focused on the record last time. I wanted to document stuff on Instagram through photos and everything, but since coming back, I've really realized the value of video and being able to add that element to my trip. But I know that I can't do that on a tight timeline, and I can't do that as well if I'm in a tent, which I can't sit up in, trying to work on a laptop and stuff like that. So I think that will really help with that side of things, and add just another element to it as well. So yeah, excited for that. But yeah, we'll see what happens.
Awesome. So go on then, what was your route?
So I went through...
Sorry, mate, have a swig of your beer. I'm interrupted now. Have a swig of your beer.
I'm going to joke on it now. Right. So I went through Europe, basically France to Italy, Slovenia, Hungary, Slovakia, Ukraine, into Russia. I just did a small part of Russia, from Ukraine straight across to Kazakhstan, basically, because my visa was expiring. Then I dropped down to Almaty in the south of Kazakhstan. That's where my clutch went for the first time.
In Kazakhstan?
Yeah, so I spent a month
on a Ducati.
The only one Ducati dealership in the whole of Kazakhstan, which is the 9th biggest country in the world, I think.
Yeah.
So headed down there to the Ducati dealership and literally coasted into the dealership, bang shifting it into neutral to try and get the bike to stop because the clutch had just given out completely. And spent a month there waiting for the part to arrive. And then I was originally planned to go through Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan into Iran, but Turkmenistan wouldn't give me a visa. So I went back through Kazakhstan, 5,500 mile detour, through across a boat on the Caspian Sea, I think it is.
Yeah.
To Azerbaijan, down into Iran, across Pakistan, India, Myanmar, Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, Australia, and then across Australia, and flew out from Brisbane to Chile. And then from Chile all up the west coast of South America to Colombia. Got the boat from Colombia to Panama.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, that was amazing. Incredible experience.
Was that the yacht? You did the yacht, the 560 barbecue yacht?
Yeah, the Stolrat. It was cool. It was like I was me and one other person on it. Wow. Because everyone comes from North America to South America, and no one goes from South America to North America.
Really?
So, yeah, it was nuts. And when we got to the port in, I say port, it was like a jetty in Panama. There was like 10, 12 bikes ready to come on board. And that was nuts. And the person that I was on the boat with, Melusine, a French lady that was making a documentary about riding motorcycles through South America, and she's done a couple of other ones as well. Really nice lady, completely seasick the whole time. She didn't get up once. So it was like me, 2 Colombian ship hands, the German captain, And then I think there was like a German girl that was traveling and decided she wanted to spend 3 months on this boat helping out. But yeah, it was great. San Blas Islands and everything was incredible. And then back on land, I had my helmet stolen in Colombia. So through the start of Panama, well, it was my own stupid fault. When I was loading the bike into the dinghy to take it to the boat, I put my helmet down because I'd ridden it there from the hotel. And then loaded the bike up, and then the captain was like, "Oh, I'll give you a lift back to your hotel," in his car. I was like, "Oh, fantastic." Just got in the car, left, got halfway down the road, and was like, halfway down, I was like, "Oh, it's only been 5 minutes," like sprinted back, is gone.
Nightmare.
And he was like, "Oh, don't worry," really eccentric German guy is like, "Oh, don't worry, I think I've got a helmet in the bottom of the boat somewhere." He pulled out like a bright blue American like plastic baseball helmet.
Yeah.
So I rode with that for a bit through Panama, and then someone gave me a open face that didn't fit, that I had to smash the lining out with a hammer to get it to fit on my head. And then I eventually got a new Bell helmet when I got to Costa Rica. I think it was the only place they could send it out to. But yeah, all through Central. I think I went to almost every country in Central America. Yeah, and then up through Mexico and all around North America for a good few months, and then flew out from New York to Lisbon, and then Spain, France, and back to Blighty.
Worked your way up. Beautiful. Yeah. How did you find? Let's start with Panama. How did you find Panama then? Because I found it a really, really friendly place. But that was 2000 and when was I there? 2014. I think I was there. Early 2014, and I've spoken with people who've been there since, and they found quite a lot of hostility towards them as a Westerner. Did you experience any of that there?
No, but I didn't have like the most I don't know, the most like out there meeting people experience in Panama, because I arrived there and a guy messaged me on Instagram and said, "I own a hostel in Panama City. Come and stay here for free, and all my mates, we all ride bikes and we'll hang out," and like that, basically hang out. So I went and stayed there for like four or 5 nights or something, and I spent all my time with him and his friends, going out on ride outs to like beautiful waterfalls and stuff like that, and eating and that sort of thing. So I didn't have a experience where I was sort of on my own as the Westerner, or like in a group of Western people. Or meeting people that didn't already know people that I was hanging out with. So I couldn't really say on that half, but I loved it. I thought it was really cool. Definitely insanely developed in a very short period of time. And they were saying as well, the people that I was hanging out with, when they were taking me to beauty spots and stuff like that, they were like, just please don't geotag stuff on social media, because the next week a coach turns up. People spot it, and there's a coach tour the next week. And we went to one waterfall, and it was literally like the tiniest dirt road to get down to it, and a whole coach turned up and like offloaded people. I was like, how did you even get down here? But they were like, 6 months ago we used to come down here and there was no one here, and then a couple of sort of influencer celebrity types do a geotag, and then the next month there's a bus tour that heads there.
It's a negative, innit, of social media. I found so many positives on my trip, but there are so many negatives with social media. Going on from that, how do you cope with being, effectively we are influencers in our own little niche? How do you cope with that? Have you had any sort of negative aspects of that?
A whole bunch, but I think like I learned to tune it out a bit now. Like there's the old adage, isn't there? Opinions are like arseholes. Everyone's got one, and they all stink. And social media really highlights that. YouTube's terrible for it. But 90% of my interactions with people and the like core stuff that has come out of social media has been incredible. I used it to stay with people all around the world. probably like 60-70% of my trip, I stayed with people through social media. I've even people I've never met that I have like weekly conversations with, just being introduced to so many cool people or support. It's been fantastic getting other people's advice on stuff when things go wrong. Or just like, oh, I have a friend who has a friend that can help you out when you're here.
Yeah.
I think when you're able to take that side of it, it's really great, but it's learning to like fade all the other stuff out, especially the stuff that doesn't mean anything, like likes and reach and stuff like that, getting too bogged down in how popular you are.
Yeah.
And yeah, that can really gnaw on you, or like feeling that you have a constant pressure to engage with it. It took me an hour and a half every morning to respond to messages and comments on my trip, which was a huge amount of time, especially if I had like an early start, but I needed to find a place to stay in a week's time. So I had to make that commitment. But yeah, I think now I would probably do it different, be a bit more relaxed about it, not have as much invested in sponsors and stuff like that, especially when they're not paying you. It's like, when I think about it now, I'm like, why did I make such an effort when I like Ducati has sold over £1 million worth of motorcycles, didn't get a thing, and all of the servicing and everything was local dealerships saying, oh, we're not charging you for a service because you've ridden around the world and we think it's wicked and we want to help you out. It wasn't because Ducati took care of it or anything like that. So yeah, it's like, why did I go to so much effort to highlight the bike, or make sure I was posting or wanting to be tagged by them or them to share my adventure, when really it didn't benefit me in any way?
It's not reciprocated, is it? You're not getting anything back. You know, it doesn't matter about the financial side of it, but as you said, just in the support, as in help spread the word a little bit. You're trying to raise money for charity here, and obviously you want as many people to know about what you're doing as possible, so it can potentially increase the amount that you can raise for charity, but also for you on your trip, open up avenues for you, go places to stay, meet people, find new places to see, all this sort of stuff. Going back a little bit there, what you're saying about the comments, I remember on my trip, it was, the support was phenomenal on social media. It was only really Facebook then. I sound like a right granddad, but sort of 2012, 2014, there was Twitter, but I wasn't.
Media for 5 years at that point.
What was that, sorry?
2007 Facebook started, so you've only had social media for about 5 years.
Yeah. So I mean, it was predominantly Facebook that I was on. I had Twitter, but I didn't really use it too much, and I've come off it totally now because it's just full of arseholes, isn't it? It's just the most argumentative, pedantic arseholes you're ever going to meet in your life. So I've just come off it. I can't be arsed with it. But yeah, I use Facebook, and you know, it did take a lot of time to monitor the comments and the emails and everything like that were coming in. But I think it's important to sort of reciprocate that commitment people are showing to your trip. You know, people are taking the time to comment, you know, to actually type out that comment and send it to you. And a lot of the time they're offering help, aren't they? You know, whether it's something to do with your bike or places to stay, people to meet. So I've sort of tried to maintain that to this day, that although I just can't respond to all comments every single day, because you haven't got time to do anything else, have you? So I'll sort of really I'll make 1 or 2 days a week, right? I'll hit my DMs, I'll go through them, or I'll go through emails, or go through comments. But I think it's important to sort of keep that relationship going with people that are investing in you, for sure.
Definitely. My favorite part of the whole trip was seeing people becoming inspired to do any sort of trip, or take their test, or just make an effort to get on their bike once more often than they would have before, or anything like that. So that was the real value to me, was actually those interactions and that support. And yeah, like you say, people are investing in you. They're so involved and passionate about your trip that the least you can do is take 2 minutes out of your day to respond to a question or thank them for their support. It's just when there's 20,000 people doing that, then 2 minutes is a lot.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's nothing better, is there, than opening up a message and getting that you've inspired me to get on a bike, or you've inspired me to live out my dream that I've put by for years and years and years, and I'm going to go for it now. And whether that is I'm going to jump on a bike and I'm going to leave the UK, or I'm going to go to Wales, or I'm going to go to Scotland, whatever it is, it's just like, yeah, good on you, go for it. Yeah. I love that.
And I think as well, with my trip raising money for Movember and speaking about my own experience with mental health, I had so many great connections with men and women, just being totally open to someone that they felt familiar with, but didn't really know, so didn't have any sort of commitment. They were I'm never going to turn up at their house, or they're never going to really bump into me in real life. So they've maybe felt like they could be open, and seeing someone else talk about mental health so casually, and in what is very much like a macho industry, I guess, which I'm not at all. But yeah, I think that was so valuable to me to see that I can actually make a difference just by talking about something and doing what I love, which was really precious, and like you say, makes you value and dedicate that time to getting back to people.
Definitely. Can I ask, what is the connection with Movember? Obviously, you did the trip to raise money for the Movember Foundation. What is your connection with that?
So I had my own issues with mental health since I was about 14, mainly depression and anxiety. And it all kind of boiled over when I was at university, about the same time that I got into motorbikes, and I found motorcycles to be a great sort of coping mechanism for me, and a crutch, I guess. I find it like some sort of meditation, and for years I rode every single day, even though I wasn't commuting. I lived in the same town as I worked, but I would make sure I rode every single day, because that, whether it was 20 minutes or an hour or a whole day, made such a world of difference for me being able to process my thoughts and emotions. A couple of years down the line, as soon as I got my motorcycle license, I wanted to ride in the Distinguished Gentleman's Ride. It was something that I'd seen knocking around, and for those that don't know, it's a yearly event globally, in tons of cities around the world, where everyone dresses up in your sort of Sunday best, rides classic vintage motorcycles and scramblers and stuff like that around the city, and raises money for Movember. So I had the connection with mental health, and I think I'd done Movember once in the past and grown a very feeble mustache when I was probably about 18 or something like that. And then I'd done DGR, and raised money for Movember when I was doing that, and sort of that's my first experience of more people actually talking about the causes, and seeing a lot of people in one place all supporting one thing and putting their hand up and saying, I can relate to this. Whereas when I did Movember, or had heard about Movember before, it's always been like, just, it's an ad campaign, isn't it? But when you go to an event where there's 2,000 people there, all in support of the same thing, even though everyone's there to ride motorcycles, it really puts it into perspective. So I had this existing relationship with Movember and my own experiences with mental health. So when I decided that I wanted to do the trip, it was a no-brainer for me that Movember and motorcycles went hand in hand, and I could relate to both of them. So yeah, that's how the Movember thing came about. I emailed them, got an email back from my friend Ben, my now friend Ben, and he was like, let's go for a coffee. And I wrote my motorcycle off the week that I went to meet him. And I went to meet him for a coffee, and was like hobbling up this hill in Guildford to go.
I am going to ride around the world.
Yeah, so I promise I'll do it. I just need a bike. Yeah, that was that. So,
do you still have the affiliation with Movember now? Or are you still doing events for them?
Every so often. I went to well, they haven't really done anything or been able to do anything for the last year or whatever.
Such unreal times, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it will always be a charity that's really close to my heart, and I'll always try and support them whenever I can. I definitely would support them and work with them on something again in the future. It was quite hard on my trip because I didn't know where I was going to be at specific dates. So arranging stuff was really difficult. But I did quite a lot of talks along the way, met loads of people and did some fundraising events and stuff. So yeah, I'm not like in any sort of bind with anyone, but they'd be a charity that I'd always think of first, I think.
Awesome. Right, I could sit and chat with you all day. We still have some questions to get through, so I'm very aware we may well have covered some of the topics that the questions address, but sure. Shall we just fire through them now? How long have you got, by the way? I don't want to keep you for all night.
As long as you need.
Awesome. Beautiful. Well, we'll try and keep this sub 3 hours then, Henry, if we can. Some of them have gone like 3 hours. It's ridiculous. Right. First ones, folks. We'll pop across to the clan as usual over on Patreon. So it's patreon.com/TeapotOne. First question, Bob Hawley. How you doing, Bob? Hello, gentlemen. Hope all is well. A question for both of you. Whether you're traveling around the world or just going on a weekend trip, what is the most important part of the planning process? And during your round the world trip, what was the one thing that you overlooked and you wished you'd had planned for? Take care and be well. Most important part of the planning process.
I think the most important part of the planning process for me would be not over planning. Yeah. Because so I met up with a guy and rode with a guy called Mike across Australia, and I love Mike to bits. We had a fantastic time. He was the #1 planner. He'd worked in like logistics and stuff in the oil industry before, so he was very into it. And a couple of days before I arrived in Australia, he sent me a document, which was a day-to-day plan of our trip, which went down to like which petrol stations we're going to stop at.
Oh, no.
This is literally first day, this is going out the window. He was like, no, like, why would it go out the window? We just stick to the schedule, everything will be fine.
What can happen? Yeah.
By day 2, it was in the trash can as we left the motel.
And I bet his life has been enriched ever since.
Oh yeah, he's incredible person. And he's been running like adventure tours in New Zealand where he lives, and I'm sure he's a lot more relaxed for the couple of weeks that he spent with me driving him up the walls.
I think for me, I did sort of I gave myself even from the get-go, I gave myself a rough time scale, and I was fixed by when I had to be back at work. So I had a 2-year career break, so I knew I had to be back within 2 years, but I also had a mate's wedding in the UK, which I wanted to be back for. So that sort of cut that 2 years down to about a year and a half, year and 3/4 or so. So I had a rough time scale, but my most important thing, I think, was budget, a rough idea of budget, because I didn't want to go away thinking I can do this on 20 grand and then it cost me 140. So I wanted to get a rough idea as to how much it would cost. And it was very rough, way too little as it turned out. And then sort of working out the seasons for roughly where I was going to be, because I didn't want to be places in the wet season or at winter as best I possibly could. So that, for me, that would be it. Is really just, for me personally, I wanted to try and be places when it wasn't in the extremes of the weather, preferably not too cold or wet.
And the more time you allow on the trip, the more you can kind of play with that, I guess, as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't know about you. So go on.
I think I was very lucky with my trip that I sort of lucked out on that. But I would agree that like looking at the seasons and estimating your time and stuff, but the more time that you can give yourself is a luxury for that sort of thing, which I didn't really have anyway because I knew I had to leave and get back. But going forward, that would be something that would be really high on my agenda. But yeah, there's always stuff you're not going to plan for, and it's always the thing that you don't plan for that you're going to kick yourself for in the end.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's important if you've got the luxury of time, it's probably important not to tie yourself down too much to I must be here at this point and there by that point. Obviously, when it comes to shipping, and if you've arranged for flights or cargo ships, then okay, you are tied by that, or you just bite the bullet and rearrange it, delay it. But there might be financial implications because of that. I don't know. But I found on my trip, particularly in the sort of last stage, all up through South Central America, because by the time I landed in Chile, I was just, I want to get to the States. I want normality. I want a taste of something familiar. And I look back
where did you fly to Chile from?
Sydney.
Okay, so you had, same as me, you just had a good lump of normality in Australia, but you were just tired.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I think, I can't remember how long I was in Australia for, 3 or 4 weeks. And then, landed into Chile, and I wanted to go to Ushuaia. I was wanting to go and do Ushuaia, and then I wanted to go all the way up to Dead Horse. But by that point, it was like realization setting in that I haven't got enough money. I can't afford this, because it's a good 2,000 miles from Chile down to Ushuaia, isn't it? And then you've got to do the same back. It's not just a little hop, skip, and a jump. And I just thought, I haven't got the money.
No, money was the most stressful thing on my trip. And every time I was made anxious or just stressed out by anything, I've had more sleepless nights over money than I did about getting robbed or crashing or kidnapped or anything like that. But yeah, when I got to Chile, I was absolutely knackered, and I think I spent a month or 2 in Australia, and I think that touch of normality and relaxation and just switching off a little bit almost screwed me a little bit, because I got so used to it so quickly that when I was back in Chile, not speaking the language, that's a huge thing. I was just like, I can't do this. I can't be asked anymore. Like, what take back to nice weather, great like Western food. Everyone speaks English. It really took the wind out of my sails. It took me a good month. I was also paranoid. Really paranoid when I got back to Chile that something bad was going to happen on bad roads, or like I was just so used to everyone being sensible that when you've then got a bus hurtling around a corner at
on the wrong side,
hour, like that, round a corner, puts the hairs on the back of your neck up.
Definitely. What you said about money is exactly the same. I ran out of money. I had no money left by the time I sort of got to Australia. My budget, once I got to Sydney, my budget was gone. So as far as I was concerned, that was going to be the end of my trip. So when I was working my way down through, I think I'd just come out of Malaysia and I was coming down through Indonesia, I posted up on my socials and said, look, I just want to give you the heads up that I think when I get to Sydney, that's going to be the end of the line. So, we'll make the most out of the rest of this trip. But thanks very much for all your support. It really has been amazing. And literally, I was just inundated with messages from people going, no, you can't stop. You've got to keep going. How can we donate like a tank of fuel? How can we keep you going? Yeah. So I thought, well, I don't just want to accept money off of people. So I said, well, I'm going to do a book and I'm going to do a DVD. So I can't tell you when that will be done and when it will be available. But if you want to pre-order, then how about we say this amount for a book and this amount for a DVD? And, obviously I'll need to pay for that once I'm back home, but I'll be back working by then, so it's all right. So that's what I did, is I literally took pre-orders for my book and my DVD, and I think I set up a little PayPal thing on my website where people could donate like 10 quid for a tank of fuel or something. And people literally, in the space of less than 2 weeks, people donated enough money to get me from Sydney to Houston, where I was meeting my principal sponsor that had come on board, and they said, if you get to our HQ in Houston, we'll give you this last lump, which would let me finish the trip. It was just like, this is incredible, absolutely stunning.
Yeah, I wish I'd done it. I felt so conflicted over it because I was raising money for charity as well. I felt like any money that people wanted to give should go to charity, but
exactly really, the same.
not everyone wanted to give to the charity. They want to put money in your pocket to help you achieve your dreams and let them share in that. I mean, I sold T-shirts and stuff, but I gave all the money to Movember. So it was fucking stupid, because I'm like eating one meal a day and like hoping that on my bike does enough mileage so I don't have to fill it up. And at the same time, I'm giving thousands of pounds away to a charity, which I love the charity and everything, but I felt so guilty about taking people's money. And I was the same. I got to Australia and my shipping had been promised to be paid for and wasn't. So that was like quite a big shock to my budget, which was small. And I flew in to, I think I was actually in Malaysia organizing my shipping to Australia and thinking, fuck, like, how is this going to work? And I got a message from Mark Howard, who started the Distinguished Gentleman's Ride. He was like, hey mate, like, senior trip, awesome. Stoked that you're raising money for Movember and really want to meet you when you get to Sydney. Like, what's the deal with your sponsors? And I was like, well, Ducati UK lent me the bike. Revit have sorted me out with some clothing. Mallet giving me the bags. And I'm funding the whole thing myself. He was like, that is absolute bollocks. You send me your bank details, I'm sending you $5,000. And that $5,000 was like the make or break for my whole trip. He's like, I don't care if you break the record. It doesn't make any difference to me. Just have this money and make sure you finish, or like make sure you have the trip that you want, basically.
Doesn't that reinstill your faith in people?
And they're a lovely guy, and the whole trip restored my faith in people was at an all-time low. I worked in the music industry before I left for my trip, which is notoriously not a not a humane industry to work in. So
is fickle an apt word? Fickle?
It was yes. So it was brutal, and people were a commodity, and it was rife with everything that you could think of. Everything that hits the headlines was front and center in the music industry. And like working and living around London as well, you just don't have connections with people. You don't have connections with strangers. And so taking that trip really restored my faith in humanity, allowed me to connect to people in a way that I'd never experienced before.
Yeah, it totally changed me. I was exactly the same as you, really. I had quite a low opinion of people. You know, I had my close circle of friends who you'll do anything for, and people I worked with who you've got a very, you know, and I was in the old Bill, and you have an innate close bond with people that are in uniform. You just do, because of the nature of the job. But I had a very low expectation of strangers, because my experience was never really particularly favourable in my line of work. And doing the trip just totally changed me. Totally. I would have never done this before. Not a chance would I, you know, contact somebody I'd never met before and go, do you fancy having a chat? Not a hope. I would never do something like that. And it's totally flipped me on my head, basically. I don't know. Now you can't shut me up.
In terms of my self-confidence and like being able to approach people and just have a conversation with people, it's changed my life. But also the funny thing is, every time I was in a less privileged, so shall we say, part of the world, whenever I had a problem, there were so many people, and within half an hour, I had a solution. Even if it wasn't fixed, I had a solution. There was someone there that was helping me. Picking my bike up, me and 4 other blokes in the middle of nowhere in Peru, and lifting it into some guy's brand new work van, or a truck driver helping me fix a puncture, let me use his air compressor to pump my tire up, people giving me food, free drinks, whatever. And then I got back into America and I ran out of petrol, and I had my spare spare cans. So I was basically running the tank dry, and then I could use my spare can to top it up. And it was on the side of this interstate in the middle of nowhere, but busy still. And I had the bike there, and I was filling the petrol up. And I can't remember whether there was a slight incline on the road or it was really windy. But anyway, the bike fell over, and I'm there, and the hundreds and hundreds of people are driving past, and I'm there on my own trying to lift this bike up with all the bags on while fuel's pouring out all over me. Not one person stopped.
Really?
Yeah. And that, for me, I was like, at that point, humanity is incredible, and we don't appreciate it enough, mainly because we don't ask. But there is an attitude in the Western world that we shut ourselves off from those interactions. And it could have been an amazing, something amazing could have come out of that experience, but it didn't. And I do feel like it's way less likely to happen in the UK or in the US or wherever, unless you have that innate bond with someone in uniform, whether that's a police outfit or a motorcycle outfit. I think we're way more likely to help each other out.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. When I was in Japan, I had a slight mishap one day on the bike, crashed the bike, and as a result of that, I ended up making the acquaintance of an amazing chap called Pete Wilkinson. I'm still pals with him now, and his family. He's an Aussie expat that had moved to Japan, and he came pick me up, into his van. Took me to his family's barbecue. They were staying near Mount Fuji, so spent a day or two with him there, and then back to his house. And I lived with him for like 3 or 4 weeks, and he helped me rebuild the bike. And I'll never forget, we were out in his truck one day. Can't remember what we were doing. We were out somewhere going along like a freeway, motorway, and there was as you just said, there was a car pulled over at the side of the road, and Pete was just like, oh, didn't know them, just pulled over, jumped out, speaks Japanese, so he just ran up and he was like, are you all right? Everything okay? Do you need help with something? And I just thought, wow, what an awesome thing to do, because I suddenly thought, how many times have I just driven by someone in the UK that's stopped on the motorway, and you just it doesn't go in your head.
Never ever done that with a car. With a bike, I always try and stop and say, is everything all right? But with a car, I'm always like, oh, they're on the phone to the RAC. It's fine. Yeah,
they'll be all right. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, the exception to what I was saying before about the Western world is if we have the introduction, if we have a common connection beforehand, we're more open. Like your story just then reminded me of it, that I stayed on people's couches in America, or they gave me their bed and they slept on the couch for huge amounts of time. So much hospitality, but it was because they already followed me on Instagram and they reached out to me. It wasn't because I was a stranger broken down trying to pick their bike up at the side of the road. It's that slight difference. Whereas your mate never know them, never going to see him again.
Yeah,
doesn't even know if he can help them, but will stop anyway.
Yeah, it's awesome, isn't it? It was a bit of an eye-opening moment for me, and well, here I am thinking about it and thinking, God, in my head, I'm now seeing pictures of all these people I've driven by when I've been in the car. I need to fix that. Sorry, Pete, I've let you down. We haven't answered the second part of the first question yet, which was, what was the one thing that you overlooked and you wish you'd planned for?
Money. Always money. Yeah. I think everything else you can work around, but it's hard to magic cash out of thin air.
That is very true. That is very true. But I think these days, manufacturers, maybe not some, they're not quite as willing, but brands are much more with it in terms of social media than certainly they were even going back to when I did it 12, 13, 14. It was just there was a couple of people that did it, but now I think it's accepted. It's sort of the thing to do, isn't it? So, I'm not saying it's going to be easy, folks. That if you want to get financial backing, I'll tell you right now, it's not going to be easy. But who was it I had on here recently? I had someone on here recently, and we were chatting about this, and it was Graham Hoskins, and I think what you need to do if in terms of trying to acquire sponsorship is treat your trip like a business. You really have to, sort of let go of the this is my baby and the whole heart attraction to your trip, and think of it as a commodity, as a business. If that's the line that you want to go down, if you want to go down the line of trying to acquire financial backing and things like that, then you have to approach people with a business plan. You know, this is what they're going to get in return for whatever it is they do for you, whether that's kit, whether that's support, whether that's exposure, whether that's financial, or all of the above. So, and I think if you were...
I think that is true. But I also think that that's a huge time commitment, and still you're going to get a 90% no.
Absolutely. Totally. I sent out well over 1,000 like promotional packs, and I don't think I got a single thing from any of those promotional packs. It was all chance meetings. Like the sponsor I got
November, or people that I knew that knew someone.
Yeah.
So like I sent 1,000 emails.
Yeah.
And it was Ben at Movember knew the guys that ran Ducati UK, and Ben was the Movember partner for the DGR, so he knew the guys at Revit.
Gotcha.
And then that was like, it was pretty much just Ben was the connector for all of the free stuff that I got, but all of the emails that I sent. At the same time as well, I was like some 22-year-old punk that was just like, I promise I'm going to ride a motorcycle around the world.
Yeah, I've just written this one off. Yeah,
and I've just done a business degree, so I like to think that I had some sort of like panache when it came to like putting forward a proposition. But at the same time, it was like I didn't have any credentials. That's the hardest part. And now I don't know if it would be any different. Everyone said to me, "Oh, the next time you do it, it will be a whole different kettle of fish," but I'm not sure it would really.
And also, I think as we've just
make that commitment.
And as we've discussed, once you bring on sponsors, there's other commitments. You know, there's ultimately there's got to be a payoff for somebody to get involved. They have to get something back, and you have to keep that in mind, don't you? For sure.
Yeah, and you also have to think that my around the world trip's going to cost you at least 20 grand minimum, whereas someone can take a pretty picture of their bike outside of their house and have 10 times more followers than you, and it doesn't cost them anything. So your cost and versus your value is massive compared to someone else doing something a lot less valuable, but in terms of this weird social media age that we live in, doesn't actually balance out like that.
It's horrific when you start looking at it, don't you? Because you start, I don't know, you're not questioning your self-worth with social media, but you do start thinking to yourself, oh, am I not as good as that, because that person's got 100,000 followers and you've got 5. You know what I mean?
There's jealousy in there as well.
It's ridiculous.
I'm happy to admit it. Like, I get some pissed off that I'm like, I rode around the world, I ruined my body and spent all of my money for this, and no one cares.
I know. And then I've said it before, it is pure jealousy. It is absolutely pure jealousy. But you get like Instagrammers and TikToks who are generally good looking lassies, and they've got a phenomenal following. So you're just like, you can't compete with that. What are you supposed to do?
To be fair, like
as you said, it's jealousy. If I had it, I'd flaunt it. Absolutely. I would use it to my advantage for sure. Anyway, next question. Steve Hodgson. Hi guys, and thanks for the great crack. If you were 18 years old again, would you live your life differently? It's not that long ago for you.
Yeah. Well, I'm 26 now. Almost 10 years. That's scary. I remember the first time I grew up in a pub.
Wait till you're 40 odd, it'll happen all the time.
Yeah. Would I do anything differently? I probably would have just not. I wouldn't have gone to university. Wouldn't have done it, and I would have just taken my bike test a year earlier, and throw myself into that. But it's so hard to say, because had I not gone to uni, then maybe I wouldn't have started riding bikes and stuff. But yeah, I wouldn't have done uni. I would have taken the money that I pissed up the wall at university and done something that would change your life instead.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, I'm sort of in a similar boat in that I went to uni. I came away with a civil engineering honours degree, which I've never used. I've absolutely never used. But A, it's a degree to fall back on should you ever need it. You know, it's something to put on the CV, isn't it? And B, it's the life experience. That 4 or 5 years I was at uni changed me from who I was as a 17-year-old to who I was when I left uni in, geez, what was I, 22, 23. I was a dad by then. You know, I was already a dad, and, you know, I'd walked the doors, I'd met loads of people, I had loads of life experience in that short space of time. So, God, would I think I would, I used to be right into my rugby, and I wish I'd stuck at my rugby in my early 20s when I just sort of started to get where I wanted to be, and then something happened and I just sort of gave up. And I really wish I'd gone for it and kept at it just to see. But who knows? Who knows?
I think as well though, it's such a difficult question, because A, it's never going to happen, and B, if you're content now, no matter what has happened before, why would you change it? Absolutely.
Yeah, very true. Yeah. Deal with what you've got now, and what happens in the future, because you can't change your past, can you? Nice, like that. Carl Laidlaw. Hi, guys. Hope you're both well. A question for Henry. When you achieve something as spectacular as an around-the-world trip at such a young age, what can you do to get a similar feeling of achievement and satisfaction?
That's a difficult one. That is... something that I've really been dealing with, and I'm sure you dealt with it as well when you got back. The juxtaposition of being on the road for X amount of time and then coming home and everything's exactly the same. A few things have changed, but not a whole lot. And then what's next? What am I doing next? And the first 6 months, I really enjoyed just relaxing again and appreciating the UK, which is you see it in a whole different way when you come back. So I really enjoyed that, and then it was like reality starts knocking on the door, doesn't it, and says like, how are you paying bills? And I don't care if you rode around the world on a motorcycle, like
give me my rent.
And doing it at my age, I think I invited a lot of people to say, what's next? Or like, what do you do when you've done the round the world at 22, 23? Like,
you've lived the dream.
A lot of years to fill, right? So it's given me a real anxiety about the passing of time, I guess, and like I'm 26 and I worry about getting older because I've done something so extreme in such a condensed amount of time that my whole perspective of what can be achieved in 12 or 13 months is completely warped. But it's not sustainable. That's the key thing. Doing around the world every year is not sustainable. I get the same thrill out of traveling. I've really, in the last year, I've really enjoyed and benefited from riding off-road and green laning, a new challenge, new places, plotting routes, and you get that logistical side and logistical challenge as well, and then improving a new skill that I didn't have before and wasn't very good at, and falling off a lot and making new friends through that. So that's been a real lifesaver for me over the lockdown and everything. And then next it will be, I don't know, find out when I'm still working out how I get that buzz.
Definitely. I mean, the whole post-trip blues, I think it definitely is more spoken about now. But I remember I did the whole Horizons Unlimited thing before. You know, I went every year for a good couple of years before I went away on my trip. Nobody ever mentioned what happens after your trip. It was all the trip, the build up to it, and the trip. No one spoke about afterwards. And when I came back, it hit me like a ton of bricks. I mean, I've been open about it. I really struggled for a good year and a bit. Really struggled. Like, what is the point? What was the point? You know, you come back, and as you said, I've totally changed, but nothing else has. And everyone, especially in my old job, everyone's still doing the same thing, moaning about the same stuff. And yet, you know, I just find myself really frustrated with people. I just wanted to grab hold of them and go, if you don't fucking like it, change it, do something about it, you know? And I sort of found myself with those big questions. What was the point of that then? You know, I sold everything I owned. I've disappeared for a year and a half and missed out on my son growing up for a year and a half and left my missus for that time, and, you know, put my friends and family through all that uncertainty. And, you know, some of my family lent me money to get out of certain places when I was in some shit on the trip. And, you know, it was like, what was the point of all that? Because nothing's changed. Where has it got me? And it took me a long time to deal with it before I sort of got my head straight and sort of managed to deal with it. And it was only once I was open and started chatting to people when I was giving talks and stuff about it, people would come up, like other established overlanders would come up and go, yeah, I've been through that. Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? And you get it after every trip. And it's like, bloody hell. Why would you go and do another trip knowing that you've got that to face at the end?
I think as well, it's making sure you, because the trip is exciting, and yes, it adds some element of joy to your life, but there's things, there's on a deeper level that you can implement day to day that also have such value to your happiness. I did a really interesting interview with a guy called Sam for his PhD. He was doing like a psychology master's, I think it was, or doctorate, and his whole doctorate final submission, blah blah blah, was on why do people do long distance overland adventures. Wow. And he'd done his own as well. So he had his own experience, but he talked about 19 people that had done a year or more of traveling on a bike, and he'd sort of drilled it down to that people leave because they've got an itch to scratch, or there's something that they're unhappy with in their life, and that's why they need to do this trip. But consistent happiness and like sustainable happiness from it only comes if you can implement changes that you learn about yourself when you're doing that trip. Yeah. And I think that's true, because like I mentioned before, like, and doing a round the world trip is not sustainable. You can't bring that, you can't do that every day for the rest of your life. So there has to be a point where you've learned lessons from it that you can implement in your day to day.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. Oh, nice, very deep that. Cheers, Carl. Nice question, mate. Right, last one of the Patreon questions. Mark Fulcher. Right, these are always quite obscure, so buckle up. Ready for this one. Hey up, me ducks. So a couple of questions this time around. This week, while staying at a hotel, I got put up in a room with the good old Dougie cord. Now, I've never had the bollocks to pull the said cord, but wondered, have either of you guys ever ventured so bravely, and what were the consequences? Do you know what the Dougie cord is?
No.
Do you know the red emergency cord?
Oh, in the bathroom?
Yeah. It's that.
Never mess with that.
Have you never pulled it?
No, have you?
Yeah. I think where was I? I was either on a train or a plane. And I thought it was the flush for the toilet.
Oh.
So I remember pulling it.
People that find you.
Yeah, so I pulled it and nothing happened. So I pulled it again and there was a chap on the door. So I opened the door and it was I think it was a plane, and it was a stewardess. No, was it a plane? It was like a stewardess or somebody, and they were like, "Are you all right?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine, thanks. Yeah, cheers, thank you." Shut the door, pulled it again, and nothing happened. And it was just like, how many times do I have to do it before the penny drops? I was like, hang on a minute, I pulled that, you come. Okay. I can't remember, was it a plane or was a train? It was somewhere where there was like a porter or something there. But yeah, I have pulled it, Mark. Yeah. Secondly, how many years should a good pair of pants last you? I'm 4 years deep with some of my cherished old faithfuls, but starting to get earache now from the boss saying it's time they went in the bin.
It depends how many pants you got, really, when you think about it. If you have one for every day of the year, 4 years is only 4 wears. So
that's not bad, eh? It's not bad.
You've got to break it down by days, really, haven't you? I've got old undies. There's always one that's clinging to the back of the drawer, isn't it?
How many pairs of pants did you take on your trip?
Maybe like 7. Pants and underwear was the most thing. Like I took, like socks, because I'm at the end of the day, above all other things, a clean or semi-clean pair of socks will change my mood. So I was like, no, above all else, I'd wear a t-shirt for a week or two, but socks, I want one pair that's like not been worn in my boots all day, at least.
Yeah.
On my trip, I can't really remember, but probably about 6 or 7 pairs of underwear, and I probably had a whole bag dedicated to socks, to be honest.
I started with 4 pairs of pants, 4 pairs of socks, and I had 4 t-shirts, a base layer, a fleece, and a pair of like very lightweight trousers that you could zip into shorts, and a pair of flip-flops. And I think from about Russia onwards, so that was for a good 3/4 of the trip, I was down to 3 pairs of pants and socks and the 2 t-shirts. And then after Australia, I was down to 2 pairs of pants, 2 pairs of socks. And I've still got one of those pairs of pants. It was a pair of Superman boxer shorts that I think my son my mates bought me before I left. Superman, and I've still got them. And my wife is just like, you cannot wear them anymore. All the elastic's gone and everything.
Oh, I want to see them the next podcast I watch. No, to the wall.
Right, I'll do that. I'll find them and I'll frame them up there. Yeah.
So it was like a conscious decision to thin down?
Yeah, and various things happened on the trip where I was like, oh, I've got to chuck them away.
India, basically, is what you're saying.
I didn't get to India. I'm dying to go back there, but I caught dengue fever in was it Indonesia? Yeah, going through Indonesia, and I've not got it on camera, but I've got literally a couple of minutes after it happening on camera. I was feeling really bad. I'd been laid up for like 3 or 4 days. Could not leave this hotel place I was staying at that had a toilet, a Western toilet. Couldn't leave it for about 4 days. And then thought, I've got to go now because I've got to get this like 48-hour ferry down to West Timor. So I was like, I've got to go now. So I jumped on a bike, went, and I was feeling terrible. I was feeling sick. I was in leathers. It's like 100% humidity, 40 odd degrees. I was like, this is horrible. And I thought, I'm going to throw up. So I pulled over at the side of the road, and before I could get my lid off, I threw up in my lid. And at the same time, I followed through. So I'm just like stood in leathers, just thinking, well, okay, things really can't get too much worse than this. But I had to stay like that till I got to the port. And then I found the worst hotel in the world. It makes the toilet from Train Spotting look like the Ritz. And this was just like a shanty room that had more things inside it living than were outside. And like an Southeast Asian toilet, literally like a bucket.
Yeah.
It was covered in mosquitoes, and I had to try and sort everything out with that.
Yeah,
in the bin, that'll do.
I don't miss those kind of situations at all.
Yeah,
I only
glamorous.
got sick like one time on my trip, which was the last 2 days coming out of India. I thought I'd made it through the whole of India without getting ill, and then it caught up to me. But yeah, I don't miss the like hygiene, I guess, and like toilet stuff, to be honest.
What did you think of India? I am dying to go. It's on my list of places I must see.
So I loved it, but I'm in no rush to go back. Like once you leave, you need like 4 or 5 years break because it's so intense. And just the horns will drive you insane. And when I crossed into Myanmar, I was like twitching. I was like, the horns have stopped. Why have the horns stopped? It is one of the most amazing places in the world, but it is so taxing at the same time. The Himalayas is up there with the most beautiful places I've ever been in my life.
I bet.
And that I would go back to the Himalayas tomorrow, but the whole India as a whole, there's a lot of other places that I'm ready to go back to now. India will be another 2 years before I'm ready to go back again.
Got you. Myanmar, come on, tell me all about it. I tried to get in, but couldn't get into Myanmar. They weren't letting us in at that point.
Yeah, it's a weird one. It changes all the time.
Yeah.
When Kane, the guy before me, did it, he went through no problem, no tour guide or anything like that. I had to have a tour guide to go through the country. So Iran and Myanmar, I had to have tour guides with me. But in Myanmar, not only did I have to have a tour guide, but I had to have a government tourism representative, the tour agency representative, and a driver. So it was like 4 people in a Land Cruiser or whatever in front of me the whole time. And whenever I stopped, like I'm having a pee at the side of the road, and the government tourism guy gets his phone out and is filming me every time we stop, no matter what I'm doing. He's like filming me. He's like, smile. I'm like, I'm having a wee.
I'm having a pee.
Yeah. I was only there for, I think 5 days, 6 days, something like that, because I couldn't afford the tour. And it's the same for Iran. I was in Iran for about 8 days, I think. And Iran was one of the most incredible places on the whole trip. But I was only able to stay there 8 days because and it's not an expensive place. It's very affordable. But I could not afford to stay there because I couldn't afford another day with a tour guide and everything.
Yeah. China's the same, isn't it?
Yeah, China's exactly the same. It ruins it. It really does. And the countries were incredible, but I didn't enjoy the experience at all because I wasn't free. And that's the point of the trip.
Shame. Yeah, definitely. It's such a contrast, isn't it, to what you've experienced so far, being on the bike, traveling around the world. The world's your lobster. You go where you like, don't you? And then all of a sudden you're faced with this barrier saying, no, you can only do this if you come here and follow me. Do this. Yeah.
I had a really weird experience in Myanmar where they just opened a Ducati dealership in Myanmar. I think it was the first one in the country. Yeah, and in Mandalay. And so I went there and they had all these banners, welcome to Myanmar, Henry, and everything. It was awesome. But they'd called in the media, who I thought was just like a local newspaper. They turned up with like handy cams, like, you know, the Sonys with the fold out side. Yeah. And we did this interview and there was like 4 or 5 of them surrounding me sat on like a school chair in the middle of the Ducati dealership. I was like, this is very weird. It was all over like the biggest news channel in Myanmar, and I went to the petrol station the next day and I was front page news. It was nuts. But again, that's such a surreal experience to have gone through Myanmar and met so many people, especially in Mandalay, and then to see what's happened there over the last year, and to hear people that you've met in person crying for help on social media and stuff like that is
heartbreaking.
It is heartbreaking. And I met and spent a lot of time with a guy in Australia, Jake, who's just flown out of Afghanistan. He went back he's a war photographer, basically. And to hear his stories and see his photos of the original Afghanistan conflict and peacetime Afghanistan, and his human connections to people that are suffering. And I'm sure you'll agree, seeing people in real life that are suffering is heartbreaking, and it's shocking. when you've only ever experienced it on TV, in a sort of clinical or overly dramatic way, when they're trying to make you feel guilty about it, so you switch off, don't you? But when it's right in front of you and someone's starving and you can see they're starving, it's hard.
It's very easy to distance yourself from the human connection with what you see on the TV in another country, particularly in places like the Middle East and Africa and stuff, because it's so far removed from the life that we know here that they're obviously human. Please don't get me wrong here, but it's almost like you haven't got that affinity because it's not your life.
It's a movie, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's like
But then when you're on the road and you realize that everybody, no matter what country, culture, race, religion, color they are, everyone is the same. Everybody is, it sounds soft and hippie this, but everybody's human. Everyone out there is like us. They all want to look after their own. They want to help if they can help. And people are good, essentially. Just about everybody out there is good. But once you've seen that and you see what's going on in all these other countries, you're like there, but for the grace of God, go I kind of thing, really, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Right. We've done the Patreon questions, so let's nip it. Are you okay for time, Henry?
Yeah, all good, Bruce. No worries.
Lovely. There's some more questions over on Instagram, so that's at TeapotOne Insta. I'll put all Henry's social links and everything down below, folks. So as usual, if you're listening to the podcast, check out the show notes, and if you're watching the vid, have a look at the description, and all Henry's links will be there. So make sure you give him a like, a follow, subscribe, etc. First one, Gavin Fraser 39. Hi to you both. Hi, Gavin. Hope all is well in the world for you. Hi, Henry. Since I didn't look you up before asking this question, I apologise, so here goes. Did you initially go out to break a record? If so, do you regret not taking longer, and how did you manage to get round so quickly on a Ducati? Yes, I did set out with the intention to break the record. It's something that became less and less important to me as I went around, really. But it was the whole catalyst, and it was the only way, it was sort of my excuse to do it, I guess. So it was important at the start, and as far as the trip as a whole is concerned, I think it is still important. It just was less of a priority to me as I went around. Yes, I wish I'd been able to spend longer doing it, but at the time I was also ready to come home. So I don't know. It is what it is, and it was what it was. In the future, I wouldn't set myself a time deadline, and I would just enjoy it and be a bit freer with it. But it enabled me to do something incredible. And as we mentioned before, you can't change the past, but yes, going forward, I would take longer and not have such commitment to a record or to brands and everything like that. There's absolutely no shame in wanting to come home, is there? I remember by the time, like I mentioned before, going through South America, I was like, I just want to get to America, Northern America, the USA. I want to get there. I want to get something that I know. And I was focused on getting home now. In my mind, I'd done all the hard stuff. And it was like, right, get me on the last leg, time to go home. But I remember by the time I got to the States, and I'm going around the States, I got like reinvigorated, and I just had the love for being on the road and on the bike again. It was like, I don't want this to end now, but it's like it is actually coming to an end now.
It's so surreal when you get back to the UK as well, because you're like, when I left, it's so impossible to conceive the notion of finishing where you started by going around literally the whole planet. So when I left, I was always like, I'm going to do the whole trip, but my goal is Australia for now. And then when I get to Australia, then that's halfway, and I can sort of start thinking about the homeward leg or whatever, even though it's a long old homeward leg. But yeah, it's impossible to comprehend, and it's a difficult one, isn't it? Really weird. And I feel the same. There was points where I was like, get me home, and then you get when your front doorstep, or you wake up the next day after you've come back and you're like, right, where to?
Yeah. How weird is that?
Yeah.
Well, for months I was like that. It was just like, this doesn't seem right. I should be like, I don't think I even unpacked a couple of my bags because I was just like, I'm going to be going again. My missus is like, where are you going? You're home now.
To the shops.
Yeah. Just nipping out on my bike. Right, next one. West Cork Wonder. Great guest to have on, Bruce. I met Henry a couple of times at bike shows and followed his trip. A lovely guy. Firstly, I need to apologise for always using his age and achievements as the stick to berate my son with. I.e., if Henry Crew can achieve that, what's stopping you? And secondly, did Henry get his bike back after it was nicked? Oh yeah, it got nicked, didn't it?
Yeah, but I was home for 2 or 3 months, I think, and it disappeared.
Never
saw it ever again. Never had.
Did you not?
Heard a peep? No.
I shared that on my. I remember sharing it on my Teapot page. God.
Yeah, the response to that was incredible, and it was a surreal end, I guess. But yeah, nuts, absolutely nuts. But just one of those things. And it feels like a lifetime ago now that happened. And yes, I would love to still have that bike or whatever, but yeah, never heard hide nor hair of it.
Oh mate, gutted for you, gutted. Oh well, you've got the memories. You've got the memories. Oh god, yeah. She's out in the garage. Yeah. I'm swithering with maybe getting her back on the road. The trouble is I don't. Like, she's never even been washed. She's as she was when I finished the trip. So
incredible,
that, and all the plastics are all smashed and cracked. The tail section of the bike is held. Well, it falls off. Like all the light and everything just falls because I held it on with a bungee net. That was what held the back, and with the luggage and everything. I had Krieger luggage, so all that strapped on kept the back together. But once that comes off, it all just hangs loose. And obviously it's sat there since the last time I rode it was for the book launch in 2015. So, it's still got all the fluids in it. I never even drained the oil or the fuel or anything. So it will need some considerable work to get it roadworthy. But I want to keep the patina, I want to keep the fairings and how she looks and stuff. So
yeah,
I'm not sure what I'm going to do with her yet, but I'll always have her. I will always have her for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It's just like it's weird, isn't it? Because it's just a lump of metal, but there's so many, especially when you do it solo. All your memories are shared with that lump of metal. There's no one else.
She's family, man. She's family.
About it.
Yeah, exactly.
So many battle scars and stickers from everyone you meet along the way.
Yeah.
Like so yeah,
I love it. I'm gutted for you that you haven't got that, but I often just go out in the garage and just go up and have a little pat of her or sit on her, and it's nice.
Yeah, man, definitely. The only good thing about it is that I've got room for one more in the garage.
There you go.
Yeah, but no, it's sad. I'm sort of holding out hope that in 15 years or something, I'll get a call from the police saying, "Oh, we've just recovered your bike from X or Y or whatever."
How cool would that be?
Things have happened, but yeah.
Yeah. Oh, mate. Fingers crossed it does. Fingers crossed it does. Next one, Dale Wintle, 0022. Hi, Bruce and Henry. Hope you're both well. Question to you both. If you ride around any other planet in our solar system, which one would it be and why? P.S. Loving the podcast, Bruce, and looking forward to the new motorbike TV show. Cheers, Dale. Thank you very much, pal. Right, any other planet in the solar system, which one are you going to ride round?
Well, so it's not a planet, but the moon would be pretty great for off-roading because of the craters. I think that would be great fun. And my first thought immediately was I'm going to do Saturn and flat track around the ring.
The rings.
Yeah, flat track racing around the rings of Saturn would be fantastic. What about you?
This gives you a little insight into my mind, but I just thought Mars because I want to see if I can grow potatoes from poo. Because I watched The Martian, with. Have you never seen the film The Martian?
Yeah.
I don't know why, but that popped into my head when I read the question. So yeah, Mars.
There we go. Completely different reasons.
Next one, Grant07. Hi, Bruce and Henry. Firstly, I'd like to thank you both and Richie Vida for your YouTube channels, as it was watching them that gave me the inspiration to get my finger out and get my bike license, which I have now done and got, so thank you. That's awesome. Nice one, Grant.
Yeah, I mean, we've just said earlier on in this video, it's one of the best things that you can hear. So, yeah, well done. Congratulations.
Yeah, brilliant. Welcome to the club, mate. Welcome. What's the next part? Yeah, every time I go out on my bike, it feels like an adventure. My question is, achieving what you both did and the size of challenge that lay ahead, where do you even start to plan such an adventure, and how much planning is involved? Thanks again, Bruce. The podcast channel and the YouTube channel you've created is amazing. Keep it going. Thank you very much, Grant. We sort of addressed that earlier on, didn't we?
Yeah, I think the thing is, you've just got to bite the bullet and do it. No matter, And as we said earlier, if we did it now, we would just leave tomorrow rather than faffing around with it for 10 months. Yeah. But the main thing is making sure that you've made that commitment to do it, because I'm sure you've heard it 1,000 times. I hear it on social media, or I hear it from friends, is that, oh, that was fantastic. I'm really going to do this. I'm going to do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
A couple of years down the line, and it hasn't happened. So you just got to make that commitment and just make yourself do it. The planning and stuff, you can plan on this as much or as little as you want. As long as you've got the determination to make it happen, then you'll be fine.
I'll take you back to the day you actually left. What was going through your head the day you left?
What the fuck am I doing?
Exactly.
So I rode out of the bike shed. I had a little leaving do at the bike shed with about, I don't know, there must have been 20 of us maybe that rode out from London to Folkestone, and a few. Yeah. I'd never met any of them before. They all rode out. None of my mates rode motorcycles at that point. So these are all people that I've met. I met Paul once before. Everyone else was a complete stranger to me, and they all rode with me from London to Folkestone. And I pulled out of the bike shed, took a wrong turn. The sat-nav went completely nuts. I just used Google Maps on my phone the whole way around, but it wasn't having any of it that morning. Yeah. Wasn't having any of it that morning. And every time I went 10 meters forward, it would spin around and redirect.
Oh, no.
And I ended up just stopping on Shoreditch High Street and just being like,
where do I go?
Where am I going? And Paul's lived in London for so long. He was like, yeah, I'll lead you out of the sea. I had to get escorted out of London because I couldn't find my own way out of a paper bag. And then at that point, I was like, am I really going to be able to find my own way around the world on my own? Yeah. But yeah, so that was my first 20 minutes on the motorcycle of my trip.
I'm glad you said that, because I was exactly the same. Like, when it came time, I remember I said I was leaving. I think it was 9 o'clock that morning. And when it came time, Big Ben started bonging, and I had all my friends and family there. There were like, I had 4 or 5 charities on board. So their press divisions had organised, loads of stuff. I had all the outriders from the old bill had turned up. Traffic units had turned up to escort us out of London. And there was a load of bikers with us as well, just to come with, and some of my mates on bikes. So there was loads of people. And I just remember it bonging 9 o'clock, and I had my missus and my son and my family all there. And I remember just thinking, what am I doing? What am I doing? Because you don't know if you're going to come back, do you? You just, everything starts going through your head.
Yeah, I think that's, at that point, I didn't care, to be honest. I was at such a point in my life where I was like, the danger of it was less dangerous than staying in the lane that I was in.
Yeah.
But the weird thing, and that your story there reminded me of, is you have this time that you have to leave. And I was lucky. I'd sort of said my goodbyes to my family and everything the night before, and I'd ridden up to London the night before and stayed with a friend. And they'd come to the leaving event and everything, but I'd already said my goodbyes, because when it's like 10 o'clock or whatever it is, and suddenly everyone else is like ready to leave, and you're like, oh, okay, bye, mum. Like,
see ya,
it was
bye.
such a weird, quick thing. And you're like, and then you've left and you're not seeing them for a year or more. Did you find that as well, that it was a really quick and surreal, like, how do you say goodbye to someone for over a year?
See, I'd had like half hour, 45 minutes there chatting with loads of different people, and I'd had time to, in the build up to that 9 o'clock, I'd gone around my friends and family and said bye-bye and stuff. But I remember being on my bike and everyone revving, ready to go. And we're all at Whitehall next to the Cenotaph. And my missus just ran up and gave me a big hug and a kiss. And it was at that point, you know, I lost my shit. I started bawling. I was like, oh God, what am I doing? And you just have to go, don't you? And I remember just giving her, you know, a big squeeze and a peck in the cheek and right, let's go. Got to do it. Go.
Yeah.
And what you were saying about getting lost. Well, because I was late getting there, so I needed fuel. So I've got the whole police traffic escort to get us through London, and I literally crossed Westminster Bridge, got into Old Kent Road, New Kent Road, and I was just like, I need fuel, so I had to pull into the petrol station
with the whole entourage.
With like 60 people all with us, yeah. And then it was just an obscene. We were now late to get to Dover for the ferry, and it was an obscene. It was pissing down the rain, and we were doing about 130 the entire way, just losing people all behind us.
Yeah, I bet. Fantastic.
It was carnage.
Yeah, it is a weird experience, isn't it? And yeah, it's never going to go smoothly either.
Yeah.
No, it's law. But yeah, my big one leaving was my grandparents and my dogs, because I was like, they were my grandma said to me, you're either going to get kidnapped by terrorists or I'll be dead when you get back. So
my God.
Yeah. So I was like, well, that's when you start worrying. It's like my mum and dad and everything, you sort of just expect them to be there forever, don't you? But it's people that maybe have a finite amount of time left that you start worrying about. Yeah,
definitely. Something about the planning that's just popped into my head there whilst we were chatting, Grant, is things like border crossings and shipping points. That's probably something you should have in mind, because although you don't need to be, I suppose it's not the be all and end all, is it? But certainly for things like getting from Australia to South America, then you need to do a little bit of research beforehand and go, right, can I ship from Adelaide? So where can I get from Adelaide in South America? Like, can I get to Chile, Santiago? Do I have to go to Argentina? Where does that take me? Or if I get to Sydney, where is that going to take me? You know, if you go by sea, if you go by air, all these sort of things. But that can generally be dealt with quite quickly, can't it? You go on the hub on Horizons Unlimited, or just ask around and you'll find it.
And with border crossings, they change all the time anyway.
Absolutely.
One day it will be international, and the next it will be a local only, and you've got to go 300 miles the other direction or whatever. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, we're very lucky to be. Well, I don't know if we are, but having the internet, it does have its benefits that you can find that information very quickly. But then I sort of read books of people that have done it 40 years ago, and they just turned up wherever the fuck they wanted and did whatever, showed them a bit of paper and it would be all right.
Yeah, Ted Simon. You know, Ted Simon did it before any of this.
It's got the Queen on it. Let me in.
Let me in. And it worked in those days. Yeah. Mate, are you okay for time? That's nearly 2 hours. We've got a couple of questions left on Facebook, and then that's us. We've managed everything.
Let's do it.
Right, folks, we're now crossover on Facebook, so it's just TeapotOne over there. First question, Nick Hughes. I met him at Lagunas in Ashford on his return, on the way to the bike shed. Nice lad. My question, did he ever get... Oh, here we go. Did he ever get his bike back after it was stolen? Well, we've covered that one. Sadly not.
Yeah. If anyone knows anything about it, let me know. KN17DXL. I think that was the number plate.
Tell you what, have you still got a pic? You must still have a picture of the reg somewhere, the bike with the reg on it. If you send me some pictures with it, I'll do another little post on my social media. You never know, man. You just never know, do you? Let's try.
Someone's bought an iffy one on eBay.
Yeah, definitely. If you know the whereabouts of that bike, please let us know.
He will be kept anonymous.
Yeah. Next one, Hitten Yoshi. Did he ever get his bike back? Another one asking.
Nope.
Let me try and pre-read these first before I ask. Right, next one. Ross Henderson. If you could only ride one bike for the rest of your life, what bike would it be?
I couldn't do it. Now, I'm a firm believer that you need at least 2 bikes in your garage, because there is no such thing as a dual sport, or there's no one bike to rule them all. And for me right now, I don't have a new bike in my garage. I've got a 2011 Street Triple and a 2003 Suzuki DRZ. And for me, that's it's a perfect setup. And maybe I'd like something that's a little bit more comfortable for long distance touring. But I would.
GS.
Yeah. Well, I rode my first GS ever back in May, and I loved it. So it's a dangerous and expensive toy to be messing with.
It is.
But yeah, I don't think that there's any like one bike. And I think that if you're always looking for something to do everything, you're always going to be disappointed. A lot of people I know have bought a Desert Sled or a Tenere or any of those sort of middleweight adventure bikes, and then they're like, well, I can't ride it on the road with the tires that I've got on it, and it's not as good off-road as a bike that weighs 100 or 150 kilograms. So like, what have I done? I'm like, yeah, I've got two bikes that cost half the price of your one bike in my garage, and they do both things perfectly. So yeah, for me, picking one bike would be an impossible decision. But if I had to only ever buy one bike again to add to my garage, it would be a 1990, I think it's a 7 Ducati 900 Supersport Final Edition, because my grandpa bought me a model of it when I was a kid, and I've still got the model, and it's just always stuck.
Mega. Surely that's the least Ducati can do, is give you one of them. Surely.
Yeah, limited edition. Dig me one. I'd never seen one in real life before, and when I was in America, I saw about 5 or 6 of them. Every dealership seemed to have one in like the back or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would be the one bike I'd purchase.
Mint.
What about you?
Cool.
Well, if you only keep one bike, surely it'd be around the world.
Yeah, if I could only ever keep one, then it would have to be my Jigsaw. Absolutely. Yeah. But you know, I am a total convert. The GS was the arch enemy to me. You know, like people on GSs had given up on biking as far as I was concerned, and I used to like nothing more than, I remember overtaking a GS in Russia on dirt road because they hadn't finished the road yet, and I'm on my Jigsaw and I overtook him, and I just thought, yes, have that. Well, now I ride a GS and I absolutely love them.
No, they are fantastic bikes, but I wouldn't, if I did another round the world trip, I wouldn't take one.
Yeah,
would you?
Not true.
I think if you're doing it all on the road and like, if I'm long distance touring, yes, but if I was doing a round the world, no.
See, I wouldn't take one, but it wouldn't be because of the off-road or lack of capabilities that people say about the GS, because I'm not an off-roader. Do you know what I mean? Like I went off-road on the Jigsaw, and it coped. It did it. But yeah. I have got the same ability riding off-road on a Jigsaw as I would on a DRZ or a little Husky 350 or whatever. I don't know what I'm doing, so it doesn't matter what bike I ride, because I'm going to paddle my way across rocks or paddle my way through sand or just push the bike through sand. It's, you know, so that doesn't impact on me. The reason I wouldn't take the GS around the world is because everybody does it on a GS, and I don't want to be like everybody, so I would have to pick something different. I'd think about the S1000RR, definitely, you know. Yeah. I'll try it on something like that, or I don't know. I mean, just about every bike out there has been done, hasn't it?
That's the thing, and I think it's been proved now that you can do it on any bike, and I'm sure
it doesn't matter, does it?
As well, where you'd be in the middle of nowhere and struggling to get your bike through, or watching someone on a GS or a Tiger 1200 struggle to get their bike through. Meanwhile, old mate on his 50cc farm bike just plops along. Yeah. Same bike he's been running for 20 years, and he's
with
got
a fridge and all his family sat on the back. Yeah, 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 absolutely. Yeah. I was told some advice by Jacques Lucassen before I did my trip. I told him, remember, you know Jacques? He's the Dutch guy that did it on the R1. It's 5 years on an R1. Crazy guy. He's now planning to do the North Pole on an adapted R1 as well. Crazy guy. Amazing what he did. In the 90s, he did the Congo and all sorts on this R1. Him and Nick Sanders, mental, the pair of them. But anyway, I remember chatting with Jacques, and I told him about my plans to do it on the Jigsaw, and saying that, you're my inspiration. I saw what you did and thought, if you can do it, then I can do it. And he just said to me, he said, look, take whatever bike makes you smile. And I think that is the best advice anyone could have in terms of what bike to take on a trip. Just take what makes you smile.
In general.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, any bike can have issues. You're going to have issues on your trip. You're going to run out of fuel. You're going to break down, or you're going to crash, or you're going to be in a point where you're sat or stood at the side of the road looking at your bike and just thinking, what next? And you have to have that connection with your bike. So just take whatever it is that you've got the connection with.
Definitely. Bruce, how many magic tanks of gas did you have on your trip where they just never ran out? Did you have any of those?
Yeah, I remember being in Russia. I remember doing a trip it wasn't doing a trip, it was the world trip. I think I was either on the way to Cheetah or the other side of Cheetah. But I remember them telling me that when I'd done the research, it was 700 kilometers between fuel. No. Yeah, 700 kilometers. Is that 450 odd miles between fuel stops? So I remember I had enough fuel where I think I could get about 420 or 430 miles. And I just thought, okay, if I run out, I'm just going to have to beg, borrow, plead and cover the last bit. So, and I made it. I made it to the petrol station and I've got no idea how.
I made it. Where I'm like patting the tank. Please, just one more mile. There will be a petrol station. And I ran out of petrol completely once in Austin. And I was 200 meters either side of me was a petrol station.
Mega.
I was on the flyover and I was lazy and I saw the petrol station on the side. I was like, now I'll get to the next one. And then ran out of fuel and then rolled down the hill into the next one.
Brilliant.
But apart from that, they were all, just incredible.
I remember being in Laos, right? And I remember looking on Google Maps, doing my research when I was staying in a hostel. And I thought, that squiggly road looks amazing. And I'd been staying in, is it Luang Prabang? I'd been staying there. I'd just gotten into Laos and I stayed there. And the roads were a real mix. Some of the best biking roads I've ever ridden. And then all of a sudden they'd just stop and it would just be dirt and rock and mud. And then it would be amazing road, where China was investing some money and stuff. So, but anyway, so I got to Luang Prabang and I remember having a look and my plan was to ride all the way down and into Cambodia and go all around there. But Google Maps wouldn't let me plot this route between these points down this amazing squiggly road. And I was like, bugger it, I'm going. What's going on there? I'm going. So I went anyway, and I quickly realised why, because they haven't built the road yet, So it was like proper off-road dirt track. I've got it on video. It's the hardest couple of days I've ever spent riding. It was just nuts. Yeah. But I was, as you said, on fumes. And I just kept thinking, I've come too far to turn round because I'm never going to make it back on what fuel I've got. Yeah. So you've got no option. Keep going. And I came into this little village, literally like something out of Platoon, that type of village, like straw hut built on the side of the mountain. And I was, I can't remember what they called the fuel over there. It wasn't gasolinas. I can't remember what they called it, but I'm pointing at my tank, like, is there any fuel? Yeah. And he was like, point down the road. Yeah, on you go, on you go, on you go. And I was like, how kilometers? How many kilometers? I think they spoke French. So I was like, is it van 20? Is it, roughly how many kilometers? And I think he said to me something like 200. And I thought, oh my God, oh no, I am screwed. I left him and literally 5 minutes down the road, I went over a little brow in this track and then there was a petrol station. Like, it's not even a road. There was like a petrol station with a concrete forecourt and everything. It was like, am I seeing something here? What's going on?
I had one in Kazakhstan. I was crossing the steppe in Kazakhstan and I was running on fumes already. And a police car pulled me over. Come in the opposite direction, spun round, put his lights up. I was like, what have I done? Like, I'm not going fast or whatever. He just wanted to rev my bike, but I had no fuel left. And he's like redlining it. I'm seeing like fuel spitting out the exhaust. I'm like, I've got no fuel left. And I got Google Translate out, and I was like, how far to the next petrol station? He was like, typed it back in, handed it back to me, and it was like, not long now, my prickly hedgehog, no fuel for miles. I was like, and I literally, I rolled into the gas station, like I made it to the gas station and filled up my tank, and I literally had about 200 mil of fuel in my tank when I filled it up.
The only time I ran out was in the Atacama Desert, the driest place on earth. I'd come through Chile, so I was in Santiago, and the whole way heading north on the Pan American Highway, there's just fuel everywhere, isn't there? It's like almost feels like every couple of 100 meters is a petrol station. So I just never. Yeah, and I just thought, well, I'm not going to need to fill up my fuel canisters that I have because there's fuel everywhere. So I never bothered using them. And I'm off into the desert, and all of a sudden I thought, I've not seen a petrol station in a while. Yeah, and I looked down and I'm at 150 odd miles that I'd done because I used to reset the tripometer every time. 150 miles. I didn't even know this bike could do 150 miles on a tank of fuel. So I'm whacking it in, I think it's called C mode, which was the really wheezy mode on the Jigsaw, least power possible. And I'm literally 6th gear, hardly touching the throttle. And I just kept going, and it hit 163 and it died on me. That was it. No fuel. I just thought, I'm in the driest place on earth. What am I going to do? Same thing. I think I'd been stopped. I stopped and started pushing the bike, just kept going, thinking, well, there's no fuel back there, so I'll keep going. And I just kept pushing the bike, and eventually a lady and her daughter stopped in a big truck. The daughter, who was like 13, she spoke English, so I told her what had gone on. She told the mum, and the mum just drove her. She saw a truck coming the other way, and she just like literally blocked the road with her 4x4. She got out, told the driver what was going on, and it happened to be like a council truck. You know, we get highway maintenance lorries or 4x4s on the motorways. It was like one of them, and the guy was just like, well, there's a petrol station about 35 kilometers up the road. He said, I'll take you, but I can't take you back. So I was like, oh, okay, I'll have to do that. And he said, oh, you know, your bike probably won't be here when we come back. That's the only problem. And I was like, fuck, well, I'm going to have to take the risk. Yeah, so chucked my stuff into his truck and off we went. And, you know, you get by, don't you, in pidgin French, pidgin Spanish it was. We got there, filled up, and he said, no, I must take you back. I can't leave you. I'll take you back. So he took me back, and it's the world's longest straight road, this. And we got back to where I thought the bike was. No sign of it. I was like, no. And this guy's now looking at me going, I did tell you. I was like, keep going, please keep going, please keep going. So we just sort of rounded another little summit in the road, and bang, there was the bike. That's the only time I ran out. Right. I think that's us all, mate. The next one was Barry Marling. He said, also just noticed his bike was stolen, really gutted for him, as without a doubt, I imagine he would have kept this bike like you did with the Beast. Yeah, definitely, Barry, definitely. And the last comment is just Nick Martin saying, nice pics, please post more. Dude, we've done it. We smashed all the questions.
Oh, it's been an absolute pleasure. It's it's been great spending some time chatting to you and answering all the great questions.
Definitely, mate. I can't believe we've never actually met. But I suppose the last year has been COVID anyway. But are you going to be at the bike show? Are you coming to the NEC bike show?
I haven't got plans to, but yeah, maybe. I probably will.
Yeah, I haven't like had any invites to go and give any talks or anything, but I'll definitely pop up and be there for one day. But likewise, either way, let's meet up.
Yeah, definitely.
Need to meet up in person, mate.
I'll take you off-road riding.
I'll take you to the track.
yeah, I'd love that.
Nice one. Right, Henry, before we go, it's your chance, mate, to plug anything you like, give any shout-outs you want. Stage is yours.
Yeah, well, massive thank you to every single person that has listened to a podcast or supported me in any way over the last few years, and hopefully there'll be some awesome stuff still to come when the world is put to rights again. But yeah, in the meantime, if you want to keep up with what I'm managing to do in this strange time that we live in, Instagram's Henry Crew, Facebook's Henry Crew, and YouTube's Henry Crew. I'm starting to post a bit more stuff on YouTube now, so that seems to be the only place that's sort of still alive and kicking. So yeah, whatever you feel like, come and say hi, and if you have any other questions, just shoot me a message.
Awesome. As I said, folks, I'll put all Henry's links down below, so make sure you click on them, subscribe, like, follow, all the rest of it. Dude, been an absolute pleasure to chat with you. Thank you very much for coming on.
Wicked, awesome, cool. Have a lovely evening.
Keep in touch. And you, bud, and you. Folks, hope you've enjoyed this one. Keep on doing your thing. Look after those that you love, but most importantly, live your life. Woo-ha! Dude, top man, thank you very much, man. Really enjoyed that.